Good morning. Welcome to another session of this video classes. In this video class, we will discuss about the Kepler's planetary motion, three laws of the Kepler's planetary motion, and our main focus is derivation or proof for the Kepler's laws of planetary motion. Already students are very well versed about the three laws of Kepler's laws right from the 7th standard, 9th, 10th and higher secondary intermediate standard also. They know their definitions and the fundamentals and explanation of each and every three laws of planetary motion. But here in this stage, we want to prove the Kepler's laws. That's why that is our task as far as the present class is concerned. Okay, Kepler's three laws of planetary motion. Right. We know that too, including our Earth, there are 8 planets that will revolve around the Sun. That is what is known as the solar family. Solar family is the one of the star family in which our Earth is existing. It is existing. Okay. Actually, there are in the previous decades and of course centuries, it was said that there are 9 planets that are revolving around the Sun. The 9th planet Pluto, okay, it is discarded from this list of the natural planets for the Sun because it has not all the characteristics that are required to have the eligibility of a planet. Therefore, now this was discarded. That's why at present, okay, about 1 decade back it was discarded. Therefore, now 8 planets are revolving around the Sun in the solar family. Right. The closest planet is Mercury, and the next one is Venus, and in the third place our Earth is there. Then Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Okay, are the different planets that are there. Right. In 16th century and in the 17th century, so many researches are, okay, so many theories are developed in order to explain the motion of the Earth and motion of the Sun and relation between Sun and Earth and relation between the Sun and the other planets. So many theories are evolved. Okay, right. In which the most successful theory proposed by Kepler is the important one, and it is the existing theory, and it is the theory that was invalidation till now also. Right. Kepler proposed 3 laws in order to govern the motion of 8 planets around the Sun. Okay, with the help of another scientist, another astronomer, that is Danish astronomer named as Tycho Brahe, he proposed the first 2 laws in the year 1609. In the year 1609. Okay, later, after 1 decade later, in 1618, he proposed the third law. In this way, Kepler, with the help of the Tycho Brahe, proposed 3 laws for the planetary motion. Okay, in the early years of the 17th century. Early years of the 17th century. Okay, early years of the 17th century. Okay, right. These 3 laws will govern the motion of the all 8 planets around the Sun. 8 planets are revolving around the Sun in their respective orbits very stably. Okay, when there is a stable physical system is there, the stable physical system possesses negative potential energy. Negative potential energy for the constituents of the system will provide the maximum stability. Therefore, here also every planet has negative potential energy and negative total energy. Because of this negative total energy, every planet revolves around the sun in their respective orbits without any deviation, giving stability to so-called the solar system. Okay, of course, similar to the existence of different things on the earth. Okay, with respect to earth, the total potential energy of everything, including you, me, and every object is negative. And the total potential energy of every electron with respect to the nucleus is also negative. Negative total energy or negative potential energy gives the maximum stability. That is the most important thing that we have to remember while going to this one. Right. In the three laws, in the Kepler's three laws, okay, what is the first law? This is known as the law of orbits. The second one is known as law of area. The third one is known as law of periods. Law of orbits states that every planet revolves around the sun in an elliptical orbit, as the sun at one of the foci. Okay, I will explain it detailedly while going to the proof. Second one. Second law states that every planet revolves while a planet is revolved around the sun in an elliptical orbit. It sweeps equal areas in equal intervals of time. It covers equal areas in equal intervals of time. Okay, that is the second one. Third one, the square of the period of rotation of a planet is directly proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis. Cube of the semi-major axis. That is the third law. These three laws are the laws that are obeyed or that are governed by the motion of planets of all eight while they are rotating around the sun. While they are rotating around the sun. Okay, one is the law of orbits. So the second one is the law of area. So the third one is the law of periods. Right. Okay. Now, of course, as usually for the convenience of the students, I will discuss this one by uploading the student material. Student material. Right. Student material. Okay. Right. Now, we will go for the statement and derivation of Kepler's or the proof of the Kepler's first law. Already shown in the diagram. Kepler's first law states that every planet revolves around the sun in an elliptical orbit with the sun at one of the foci. Okay, this is known as the law of orbit. Then, what is the essence of the first law? Essence of the first law is, okay, orbits of the planets are elliptical orbits. That's why what we have to prove? We have to prove that the path followed by the orbits is ellipse. Okay, path followed by the orbit is ellipse. We have to prove that the path followed by the orbits or the orbit followed by the planet is ellipse. We have to prove it. Okay, that is our target. Right. Ellipse comes under the category of conic, cone, a shape which is known as the cone. Okay. Cone has three different subdivided into three different shapes. Conic shape is further divided into three different shapes. One is ellipse, the other one is parabola, the third one is hyperbola. Therefore, ellipse, parabola, hyperbola, all the three shapes will come under the category of conic shape. Right. What is our target or what is our aim, what is our problem or what is our task here? We have to prove that the path followed by every planet is ellipse. Okay, we have to prove it. Right. The general polar equation for conic, okay, the general polar equation for conic is polar coordinates in terms of r and theta. 1 by r is equal to 1 plus e cos theta by L, in which r is the radius vector, magnitude of radius vector, theta is the angular displacement, E is the eccentricity of the conic and L is the semi-lattice rectum. Now the thing is, the E value will decide whether the cone is ellipse or whether the cone shape is parabola or whether the cone shape is hyperbola. Okay, semi-lattice rectum value will decide the shape. If semi-lattice rectum E value is less than 1, then the shape of the conic is ellipse. If the semi-lattice rectum E value is equal to 0, then the shape of the conic is parabola. If the semi-lattice rectum E is greater than 1, then the shape shape of the conic is hyperbola. Okay, hyperbola. Therefore, E value decides, okay, ellipse or parabola or hyperbola. For ellipse, E value should be less than 1. ఒకటి కంటే తక్కువగా ఉండాలి, should be less than 1. Right. Okay, it means that we have some path to prove it. Now, with what way of proof we will go for the elliptical shape? Okay, the way is, we will take the path followed by the every planet, a planet. Okay, it means that we will derive the equation for the path of a planet. We will derive the equation for the path of the planet in the shape of conic shape, in the shape of conic equation. Okay, from that one we will decide this eccentricity. If that eccentricity is less than 1, then we will say that the shape is ellipse. I hope you will understand. That's why what is our way of proof here? What we have to need? We have to go for a planet. Okay, right? We will derive the equation of motion of the path. Okay, we will derive the equation of motion of the planet, path of the planet. We will obtain that equation of motion of the path in terms of its polar equation, that is in terms of 1 by r is equal to something like as shown in the diagram, from which we will get the eccentricity. If that eccentricity is less than 1, then the shape is ellipse. Therefore, our way is now to go for the equation of motion of path of a planet. Right, okay. Okay, every planet moves around the sun with the action of a central force. Already we derived equation of motion of path of a particle under central force. We derived equation of motion of path of a particle under central force, and that equation is d square u by d theta square plus u is equal to p by h square u square. P by h square u square. P is force per unit mass, h square u square. U is equal to 1 by r. Okay, right. That was changed here by likewise. Don't bother about that one. Here what is there? P by h square u square. Okay, I will say what is mu. Force between a planet and the sun is F is equal to G into mm by r square. G, universal planetary, universal gravitational constant. Capital M mass of the sun, small m mass of the planet, r square the distance of separation. Okay, right. Now, force by unit mass, F by small m, force per unit mass is equal to Gm by r square. If you put Gm by r square here, you have Gm here, r square here, r square, okay, what is here, you have h square u square and r square and u square will cancel and you will remain only Gm. Instead of Gm we will put another constant mu. That's why this constant mu is equal to capital G, universal constant, into mass of the sun, that is also a constant. That's why this is the shape. This is the slight modification instead of p square, p by u square, h square u square. Okay, right. Therefore, you please remember here mu is equal to Gm, and we know h is equal to r square into d theta by dt. D theta by dt here, not d theta by d theta. This is d theta by dt here. This will be also equal to j by m. What is j? Angular momentum of the planet, and m is the mass of the planet. And already we know u is equal to 1 by r. You please remember all these three substitutions, which will be helpful as tools in the further derivation. Right now we will go for this equation of motion. Okay, then this one is displaced to the LHS. Therefore, d square u by d theta square plus u minus mu by h square is equal to 0. Mu constant, h constant. Therefore, for a proper order of equation, instead of u in d square by d theta square, I kept u minus mu by h square. Instead of u, if you put u minus mu square by h square, after differentiation the differentiation of the constant is 0. That's why nothing will happen. Therefore, for a orderliness, okay, in the differentiation along with this variable u, I kept here minus mu by h square. Therefore, now the equation conveniently becomes d square by d theta square of u minus mu by h square plus u minus mu by h square is equal to 0. This is a second order differential equation. Okay, very common solution, general solution is equal to u minus mu by h square is equal to a cos theta minus theta naught. Theta is the angular displacement, theta naught is the, okay, constant. Constant means initially if it is rotating some angular displacement, that is the initial displacement. That will be 0 or that will be some constant value, that makes no variation. And therefore we will term it as simply cos theta. What is the maximum value of cos theta? 1. Minimum value of cos theta? -1. Okay, right. Now u is equal to, okay, when this mu square by h square is displaced to the RHS, so mu square by h square plus a into cos theta minus theta naught. What is u? 1 by r. Now I divide this RHS, okay, into h square by mu square. When divided h square, when multiply, okay, let it to be, instead of division, let the RHS is multiplied with h square by mu square, both numerator and denominator. What is denominator here? 1. Okay, we multiplied both numerator and denominator with h square by m square. Therefore, h square by mu into mu h square will be amounted as 1. Here a into h square by mu cos of this one, and denominator is h square by mu, because when multiplied with h square by mu square numerator, the denominator 1 also multiplied with h square by mu. Right, okay. Right? Now, if we compare this equation with the equation of general conic 1 by r is equal to 1 plus e. In the place of e and in the place of l, we have, see this one, in the place of e we have ah square by mu, in the place of l you have h square by mu. Therefore, eccentricity of planetary motion, eccentricity of the path of the planetary motion is equal to h square by mu, and semi-lattice rectum of the path of the planetary motion is h square by mu. Okay, right. It means that we got eccentricity value, but this is not sufficient. This will be in the known terms. Okay, if this is in the known terms, then only we will have an idea about the E value. Okay, now, right. Now the thing is, in order to derive the E value, let us take the total energy of the planet. Total energy is equal to kinetic energy of mv square d square theta by dt square in polar form plus potential energy U. Kinetic energy is half mv square d square theta by dt square can be written in terms of the angular momentum. J square by 2m r square is the, okay, polar form, and U is the potential energy. Potential energy is equal to minus gmm by r. Very important. Potential energy is negative. Also, the total energy is also negative. Okay, because potential energy is more than the kinetic energy. Therefore, total energy, kinetic energy minus potential energy, it means that you will get to negative values more and E is also more. Right, okay, whatever it might be. Okay, now this will be displaced in the E is also displaced in the other direction. Therefore, J square by 2m into 1 by r square minus jmm into 1 by r minus E is equal to 0. This is in the form of ax square plus bx plus c. Am I correct? This is in the form of, okay, if 1 by r is kept as x, so you will get this one. This is ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Therefore, its solution x is equal to, you know, that is, okay, and x is equal to minus b plus or minus root of b square by 4ac, root of b square by 4ac whole by 2a, whole by 2a. Therefore, if you write that equation and if you take gm m square by j square as common, you will get x is equal to j m square by j square into 1 plus or minus root of 1 plus 2 j square e by g square small m square capital M cube. 1 by x is equal to 1 by r. Okay, 1 by x is equal to 1 by r. Right. Okay. Therefore, r minimum, for r minimum value here you will get the plus value because okay, e is equal to negative. Remember, e is equal to negative. If you put plus minus here, minus minus plus will become and you will get maximum value. Therefore, 1 by r minimum is equal to, okay, as e is equal to negative, here we will place plus. Okay, right. But 1 by r is equal to, 1 by r minimum is equal to, what is there? What is the equation here? But the equation obtained here, this one, 1 by r is equal to a plus h square by mu by h square mu square cos theta is equal to 1. Okay, right. That will be placed here, and these two are compared. These two are compared. Okay, when these two are compared, this is the LHS 1 plus h square by mu into by h square by mu or mu by h square into h mu by h square is equal to this one. Okay, are you okay? Right. Now, mu is equal to gm. What is mu? Gm. This mu, gm and this gm will cancel. Am I correct? Now, 1 plus h square by mu is equal to, this h square will go that side. Therefore, h square m square by j square into 1 plus of this one. Okay. But j is equal to hm. J is equal to hm. H is equal to j by m, j is equal to hm. Therefore, if you put, okay, here j is equal to hm, this one j is equal to h is equal to j by m, j square is equal to h square m square. Therefore, instead of j square, if you put h square m square, this will cancel. Therefore, you will get this is equal to this. This is equal to this means 1 plus h square by mu is equal to 1 plus this one. 1 plus this one, 1 plus this one. Therefore, this one and this one will cancel when one will goes to the other side. Therefore, what is the remaining thing? H square by mu is equal to root of 1 plus 2 j square e by capital G square capital M square mu square. This is the eccentricity. H square by mu is the eccentricity, and this eccentricity is now this one. And we know that total energy is a negative quantity. Okay, total energy is a negative quantity means you will get minus here. 1 minus something less than 1. Root of less than 1, it is also less than 1. Therefore, eccentricity is less than 1. Okay, am I correct? What is the total energy? Total energy of the planet is negative. Therefore, you will get negative symbol here. It means that in this term 1 minus something. 1 minus something is less than 1. Root of less than 1 is equal to less than 1. Therefore, eccentricity is, small e is less than 1. Therefore, small e is less than 1. Small e less than 1 will amounts or will results the elliptical part. If the eccentricity is less than 1, that will give or that is the cone which is in the shape of ellipse. Thus, the path of the planet is ellipse. Okay. Therefore, every planet revolves round the sun in their respective elliptical paths. Whose eccentricity is less than 1, and energy of every planet is negative. Total energy of every planet is negative. Potential energy is negative, kinetic energy is positive, their sum is also negative, therefore the total energy is negative. Total energy negative means it is bound to the solar system. It means that every planet revolves around the sun in their respective orbits constantly with a stable structure. This is about the proof of the first law. Right. Let us go to the proof for the second law. What is second law? Okay. Kepler's second law states that the radius vector that joins the sun and the planet sweeps equal areas in equal intervals of time. Equal areas in equal intervals of time. I will give some example. Take Earth. rotates around the sun and it takes 1 year. 1 year is conveniently divided into 12 months. We know January to December. Some months have 30 days, some months have 31 days, and of course December, February is having 29 or 28 days. But for convenience, let the all months are having same time interval, that is 30 days. Okay. How many time intervals are there for Earth's rotation? 12 time intervals are there. Okay. Right. When Earth is far away from the sun, when Earth is, this is the location of the sun. When Earth is far away, generally December month will be there. When Earth is very close to the sun, okay, you have May, the month of May. Now the thing is, Earth or any planet rotate round the sun in its elliptical orbit so that its rotational velocity is less when it is farthest from the sun, and its rotational velocity is maximum when it is nearest the sun, so that the line joining the sun and the planet will sweep equal area. It means that when Earth rotates around the sun, okay, the radius vector of the Earth should sweep same areas in all months. Okay, it means that in December it will sweep some area. In May it also sweeps some area. Okay, this is the May. This is the May region. In May region, in December region, this one. For example, if it sweeps this much of area, this area should be equal to the area swept in the May month. It means that in the May, as it is close, it should move rapidly so that it should sweep or it should cover the same area. I hope you will understand. What it means is, okay, every planet while it is rotating around the sun in an elliptical orbit, its distance is maximum at a particular time, minimum at a particular some other time. At maximum distance, its velocity is minimum. At minimum distance, its velocity is maximum. Why it is so? Then only the radius vector of that planet covers equal area in equal intervals of time. Okay, it means that the radius vector sweeps equal areas in equal intervals of time. Or on the other hand, so okay, its aerial velocity of the planet is constant, and the velocity will be adjusted so that the aerial velocity is equal to constant. Aerial velocity means dA by dt is constant. This is what is known as the Kepler's second law. This is also known as the law of areas. Okay, from this one I think you are very clear. When the planet is farthest, it should move slowly. When the planet is very close, it moves rapidly or fastly. Okay, therefore it has minimum velocity here, rotational velocity here, it has maximum rotational velocity here. Why? It has to cover equal area in equal intervals of time. Okay, that is the important thing, right? For in order to prove that one, or in order to obtain that one, consider a planet to initial at point P. In small time dt, let it goes to P prime. Okay, actually P prime is very close to P. For the convenience of derivation, we kept this one here. It covers a small displacement d theta in time dt. This is the r bar, radius vector here. This is r bar plus dr bar. This is the small distance covered dr bar here. Right. Now, area covered by the planet. Area covered by the planet to, okay, total area covered by the planet in d theta is equal to, area is equal to half base into height, half into base is r cap, height is equal to dr. Dr, the length of the arc is equal to radius into angle. Okay, therefore, okay, this half base r into dr bar is equal to r d theta. Therefore, half r square d theta. Now the aerial velocity, for aerial velocity, that is delta A by delta T, and it means that the area covered in unit time is equal to limit to delta A tends to 0 of r square d theta by dt. Then we will simply write it as dA by dt. dA by dt is equal to half r square d theta by dt. Therefore, aerial velocity dA by dt is equal to half r square d theta by dt. But r square d theta by dt is constant h. It is a standard constant we are using right from the derivation of equation of motion of a particle under central force. Okay, therefore dA by dt is equal to h by 2. It is also a constant. Therefore, aerial velocity is constant. Okay, that is nothing but the Kepler's second law. That is the proof for the Kepler's second law. Therefore, according to the Kepler's second law, okay, the aerial velocity of each planet is constant, and that constant is equal to h by 2. Right? Therefore, the line joining the sun and the planet, that is the radius vector, sweeps or covers equal areas in equal intervals of time. It means that the angular velocity of the planet is constant. Okay, angular velocity J is constant. Therefore, aerial velocity is constant. Okay, but what will happen? At furthest distance, velocity is less. At the closest distance, velocity is more. Velocity will be adjusted likewise, so that the radius vector has to cover equal areas in equal intervals of time. Right. Kepler's third law. Let us go for the Kepler's third law. Right. What Kepler's third law states that this is an observation experimental fact. What is this fact? Square of the time period of the planet. Okay, square of the time period of the planet is proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis of the orbit. What is the shape of the orbit? Ellipse. Ellipse has major axis, minor axis. All you know. Okay. Half of the major axis is semi-major axis A. Half of the minor axis, semi-minor axis B. This is the position of the sun. It is one of the foci. Right? Okay. Now what we have to prove? We have to prove that t square is proportional. If t is the period of rotation, we have to prove that t square is proportional to a cube. T square is proportional to a cube. Right. What is the path followed by the planet? Ellipse. What is the area of the ellipse? Area of the ellipse is equal to pi AB, pi into A into B. Right. We know that aerial velocity of the planet dA by dt is equal to h by 2. Just now we derived that one in the second law also. Right. Period of rotation of the planet. Period of rotation of the planet. Okay. Period of rotation means the time taken by the planet to complete one rotation. That t is equal to, in one rotation, the area swept by the aerial velocity. What is the area swept? In one rotation, it sweeps the total entire ellipse. Therefore, area of the ellipse by aerial velocity. Therefore, t is equal to area of the ellipse pi AB by aerial velocity h by 2. Therefore, this is 2 pi AB by hc. Okay, right. Let this is some useful equation, and you please remember this one. Now, if you go to the properties of what is this one, the ellipse, it's a semi-lattice rectum is b square by a. It's a semi-lattice rectum is b square by a. But L is equal to h square by mu. Just we discussed in the proof of the Kepler's first law. In the Kepler's first law, we obtained that in case of the planetary motion, the semi-lattice rectum of the path of the planet L is equal to h square by mu. This is h square by mu, but this is from the properties of the ellipse, it is b square by a. Right. Therefore, we will write the value of h square. H square is equal to mu b square by a. Why? Okay. Here we have t value. We will square it one. That is equal to t square is equal to 4 pi a square b square by h square. In the place of h square, we will write here mu b square by a. Therefore, t square is equal to 4 pi square a square b square by, okay, instead of h square mu b square by a, this a will goes to the numerator, b square will cancel, and ultimately you will get t square is equal to 4 pi square by mu into a square. Mu is equal to gm. G is the universal characteristic constant. Capital M is the mass of the sun. These two are constants. Mu is a constant, and total 4 pi square by mu is equal to constant. When 4 pi square by mu is equal to constant, automatically, mathematically, the relation will now becomes t square is proportional to a cube. What it means, the square of period of rotation of every planet is directly proportional to the cube of the semi-major axis of the path of the planet or the elliptical path of the that planet. Okay, in that way we can easily arrive this equation or easily derive this equation or easily prove the Kepler's formula also. Right. Okay, this is all about the Kepler's proof for the Kepler's three laws. See you in the next